One of the big issues of this campaign is gun policy. So here's what the 2016 Democratic presidential candidate said at Tuesday night's debate.
We have to look at the fact that we lose 90 people a day from gun violence. This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
All the shouting in the world is not going to do what I would hope all of us want, and that is keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have those guns.
It's time to stand up and pass comprehensive gun safety legislation.
And now there is this new statistic. There has been an accidental shooting caused by a toddler with access to a gun every single week this year. Joining me now is a reporter for the Washington Post, Christopher Ingram, who wrote about the accidental shootings here by young children. Christopher, with a welcome to you. Can I just ask, how does this happen? Are people just leaving their guns out unprotected?
That seems to be the case most of the time. You have adults with guns in their house. You know, they come home late at night, they leave their gun on the counter. Or you have people like this case in South Carolina earlier this year where a woman drove her 2-year-old grandson around. He was sitting in the back seat. There was a loaded handgun in the pocket in the back seat in front of him, and he just reached in there, grabbed it, and shot the person in the seat ahead of them. So a lot of it is just guns getting left out, and toddlers, 2- and 3-year-olds, being the naturally curious people that they are, just exploring them, and these things go off.
Do you have a sense, are there any stats that show this is an increasing phenomenon?
That I'm not sure of. We just looked back through this year, and I think we were pretty surprised to see it happening as frequently as it did this year. Through Wednesday, there were 43 separate cases. A number of those cases that toddlers actually shot themselves. And recall that we're talking here just about toddlers. We're talking about 1-, 2-, and 3-year-olds. This omits the entire universe of 4-, 5-, 6-year-olds who are shooting themselves or shooting other people.
It's extraordinary.
And the other interesting thing is, and those numbers, I reported this story on Wednesday. By Friday, they were already obsolete when a 2-year-old in West Virginia found a gun and shot a 53-year-old woman in the hip with it. So that gives you a sense of how frequently this is happening.
And how much of this do you find with your research for this story is preventable?
Probably most of it. I know that, you know, some gun control advocacy groups, they say that something like 2/3 of accidental child shootings can be prevented with just some common sense measures like locking up your guns at home. Some people argue that if there were better laws in place at the state and federal level to protect and make sure guns are being stored properly at home, this would take a big chunk out of those incidents. The other thing to remember, though, is that we're a country with 300 and some odd million people, and we have 350 some odd million guns. We have more firearms than people in this country, and we've got a situation like that. And when you have a gun culture like we do in this country, where a lot of people are very, they base their identity around guns, and guns are just saturated in so many aspects of our lives, these kind of things are going to happen. And I think it's just important for us to understand that this is happening, and to figure out what that means for us as a society.
So what then needs to change? I mean, you talk about some advocating for more gun laws and the like, but how about just implementing common sense? Wouldn't that go a long way to preventing childhood violence like this?
Sure. I mean, and that's what a lot of gun rights proponents say. They say, well, you know, this is on the parents. The parents need to step up and be responsible, because obviously 2- and 3-year-olds are not going to act responsibly around these things. On the other hand, I think there might be a case for better, smarter gun legislation here. If you look at the map of these things which we made, and again, I want to stress that we're looking at just a small number of cases, 43 of them, so it's tough to draw any conclusions. But you do see that in California is the most populous state in the nation. They haven't had a single one of these instances this year. On the other hand, you have a state like Missouri, which is middle of the pack population-wise, but they're leading the nation with 5 cases so far this year where toddlers have shot people. So it makes you wonder, are state-level policies playing a role here? We certainly know that policies are relatively strict in California, and I think what we want to do is take a look at another couple years of data and to see what actually is happening there.
It's an important conversation that you bring, for which I thank you, Christopher Ingram. Thank you very much.
No problem.
From finances to football.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.